Yeah, I don't know. 1, 2, 3.
It's gonna be interesting timing, Matt. Welcome, guys, to episode 6 of Matt Sandwiches. Today we have Nick Fenter on. Nick, do you mind just telling the people what you are an expert in and what you're here to discuss?
Sure, yeah. So, sports psychologist and counseling psychologist. So, 2 master's degrees, one in each. Work predominantly in sport and performance, and then obviously lecture in some other stuff as well.
Okay, awesome. So you spoke a lot of what we spoke about off camera. We were speaking about how you work with guys on improving their performance. What led you down that route? What made you want to go down that area of expertise?
Yeah, I think I was probably frustrated as growing up with my own limitations. So always trying to figure out how to be better at whatever you do sport wise and things, and combined with quite a curious interest in psychology from a young age got me down that path. And as I kind of went into studying, those things start standing out for you, and you start kind of finding what you really like and also what you're good at. So
Right.
where I found I make the biggest difference, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And what do you think is the biggest obstacle that you find most common with people in that's holding them back from reaching their full potential?
Oh, themselves always.
Right.
Like their own thoughts, really. Most of everything happens in the cognitive mind. So your belief systems, everything kind of sits there. So I think if you can overcome limiting thoughts and like lies we tell ourselves and things, that's when you probably set yourself up to be successful the most.
You can.
I actually I saw a sports psychologist when I was about 16 because I used to play cricket and I was obsessed with cricket. Like I would play cricket every single day. I would spend my Sundays, my Saturdays playing cricket. If I didn't play cricket in a day, it was a weird day for me. And I had a coach who was just as obsessed with me. And I was in the nets. I was good. I loved practice because I practiced so much. I got really good at practice. But then I would step into like a match and I would psych myself out. I think for someone who practiced, it's got to be pushing 5,000 hours of cricket, and from like 15 to I'd say 18, maybe. I think also not 18. Sorry, I think it was what's grade 7? 13.
Yeah.
So from about 12 to 15, I think I put in about 5,000 hours, close to that, of cricket practice, and I scored 150 in that entire time, and my coach couldn't work it out because he's like, Matt, you look so good in the nets, you look so good in practice, but then it's like you're a different person in the middle. And I ended up seeing a sports psychologist, and clearly it didn't help very much because I still only scored 150.
Depends who you saw.
Yeah, depends who you saw. So and my biggest issue was anxiety, and that anxiety kind of caused me to cramp up when I played. So I wasn't like the free flowing player I was in the nets. So what advice could you give to players who have that kind of, who are so good in practice, but then as soon as they step into that match, they freak out, especially with anxiety?
Yeah, there's a couple of things there that you'd probably look at. So firstly, there's a concept I like to call the practice versus the trusting mindset. So if you can't leave your practice mindset and go into a trusting mindset, then you're always going to be conscious and trying to control your innings too much in the middle. So this is very specific to cricket actually, and golf, very technical sports. So then you're constantly thinking about the shot itself and not allowing yourself to flow. And you've obviously heard the concept of flow. So you would probably work on developing a trusting mindset, which takes some time. It does include like imagery and visualization and different skills on that front, but it also takes quite a bit of practical work. So I would go as a sports psychologist onto the pitch with the player to sort that out, and work with them in the nets and stuff where they actually, this is going to be very cliche, but you practice how you want to play, but not physically, mentally. So you get yourself into a mindset that's free of conscious thought, where you kind of just allow your brain to flow. But if you don't trust in something, because it's easy to say trusting mindset, but you need something to trust in. And if you don't trust yourself, it means there's some sort of self-esteem issue as well. And then the anxiety part comes in when you it's got to do with pressure, right? So you feel more anxiety where you feel more pressure, and pressure is directly related to the value we place on the outcome of something. So the more you value the outcome, then the more pressure you're going to feel. That's why a final is always more pressure than the first game of the season. And that's also why you don't feel pressure in the nets, because you don't value the outcome in the nets.
Yeah, if you go out, it doesn't really matter.
No, yeah, exactly. So some coaches like to add like some consequence to your practice to get used to that pressure. But I think it's more to do, the value you placing on an outcome of scoring a 50 again ties into self-esteem, because it's not just about the runs, it's about like what it means to get 50. It means you're good enough. It means you can make the Western Province sides and all of those things. So sports psychology always starts with like, this guy can't score runs on the field, and it ends up being like self-esteem work. So it's very closely tied to normal psychology.
That actually makes a lot of sense, because I was a little guy throughout, I still am. I was a little guy in high school, and I couldn't hit a boundary to save a life. Actually, in my entire cricket career, I've never hit a six as well, because I was always that small.
Oh, wow,
For me to clear the boundary was a lot. So I think what also played into my sort of self-esteem in sport was the fact that guys used to make fun of me, like, oh, Harris, you block too much, or you don't play any shots, like you can't score runs freely. And so that would also be in the back of my mind while I was trying to play. So I guess that's where that self-esteem thing of scoring 50, that would be like me proving to them, like, I can score runs. You guys are wrong. Like, I can hit the boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess that's where that self-esteem thing comes in.
And it loops. So going back to what I said in the beginning about all being your thoughts, then you start believing certain things and saying certain things to yourself, which cause you to probably go and work harder in practice. So you're spending more hours in the nets, and because you're spending more hours in the nets, you're expecting yourself to perform more, and it starts to become a desperation to score runs. So that whole negative cycle of practice actually harming you in that sense. So I would take someone that's stuck in that cycle out of the nets and say, okay, less practice, not more practice.
Less practice.
Yeah. Which coaches obviously won't agree with often, but I mean, track record shows that like sometimes less is more. I just recently had a player, I don't want to give away identities obviously, but a squash player, and we said, for this week you're not training anything, because the more he was training, the worse he started to play, and then he went into this mental rut, and he wanted to go work on things more, but it was the opposite that helped him. So it was like not allowed to touch a squash racket for this week before the tournament, and helped a lot. So you need to get out of that loop as soon as you can, that negative cycle of thought.
Do you think that cutting yourself off, does it almost put you back to your basics, like you're just like having fun, you're just playing? Is that the mindset you're trying to bring back?
Yeah. And you don't take off and do nothing. You do mental work. So I do like thought processing stuff and sometimes basic CBT stuff that you might know, Matt. But you know, and like honest conversations. If you're lying to yourself about your self-esteem, which we all do, you know, we all want to be confident. Then it's not going to help. You need to be honest and sit with yourself. And I guess, sorry, that's where coaches sometimes let their players down, is when they say things to make the player feel better in the moment when they're upset, and you can't. You actually need to break down those barriers of like, I'm actually not that good. I'm not working hard enough. I don't feel good about myself. But that vulnerability is very difficult for people to reach.
So what do you think is the best way to overcome self-doubt?
The same thing really. It's like, give yourself something to trust in. Like, you doubt, I mean, do any of you have girlfriends? You've had a girlfriend recently?
Yeah,
boyfriend?
I've had a girlfriend
recently.
No.
Not okay. Well, normally trust is a big thing in a relationship, right? So you can only trust someone once they've proven to you that they're trustworthy. Okay, you take the leap in the beginning, like you're vulnerable, it's scary, but you trust them. But if they break that trust once, you're always going to doubt. And it's the same thing with yourself. If you let yourself down, it means you don't really have something to trust in. So your self-doubt is there because you've done something, or you've not done something that you should have, And deep down you know that. So you can pretend you're good enough and you can talk all the talk, but if you don't truly believe that you deserve something or that you're good at something, then you're always going to doubt it.
Right. Yeah, I watched David Goggins talk about this, and his mindset is you have to outwork your self doubt.
Yes.
Be so competent in your craft that there is no doubting in your ability.
Yeah.
But obviously that takes takes a lot of hard work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's interesting because we say outwork your self doubt, but then you say sometimes it's necessary to take
pull
a
back.
break. So I'm trying to work out how you strike a balance between outworking your self doubt and overworking yourself to a point where you have these extreme expectations that just aren't realistic, and that you put too much pressure on yourself, and then you can't perform at all.
Yeah, there's obviously two different things there. So the stuff David Goggins does is always in his control. He's not, when you're playing cricket, you've got another team against you. You've got a bowler with squash, the same. You've got an opponent. So you've actually not in control of at least half of this stuff you're doing. Okay, you can't control what the bowler bowls to you. You can't control what the pitch is going to do. So it's difficult to take ownership of it in a sport like that. So that's why you got to manage it in a different way than David Goggins would. With running and extreme fitness and stuff, you've got to outwork your self-doubt. I mean, your self-doubt. But we all know David Goggins isn't healthy. Like, his knees are broken, his ankles are broken. So there is a risk you take to that, and you can't go and play a squash match with broken knees and ankles. So there's like different element to that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I want to shift it to a slightly different area of sport now, because I struggle with this as well. In terms of my work, in that I work on my own hours. I don't have set office hours where I'm in 9 out of 5, and I tend to find that I push myself a bit too far. So I want to first ask, the first part is, how do you give yourself permission to relax, knowing that you've done enough in the day? And then how do you also find a good work-life balance?
What do you mean you push yourself too far?
Well, I'll give you an example. On Monday, I woke up at 6 and I finished working at 9 in the evening. So that was a lot of time spent in front of my laptop. And I didn't necessarily need to do that. I just felt like I had to do it, because I felt like whenever I don't work long hours, I feel like I'm falling behind, or I'm not giving my full effort to my goals, and I'm not going to reach what I want to reach in a given time frame.
Yeah. That sounds similar to your cricket practice.
Yeah.
So that's obviously some sort of personality trait you have. So you're asking, how do you give yourself permission? You in control. I mean, who's gonna question you if you stop working at 7? Only you're gonna question yourself, right? Why? What does it mean?
If I stop working at 7.
Yeah.
Like, what's the worst that's gonna happen if you stop?
I don't know. I get like this. It's like something that itch. It's like an itch I get. I was sitting on the couch here working, and I was busy working with a Facebook ad setup, and there was a problem, and I was like, I'll handle it tomorrow. And then I was watching a series, and I couldn't focus on the series. I literally could not. My laptop was like burning a hole in my leg, sitting on my lap. I just felt like I have to finish this. I couldn't let it go unfinished for the day. It's kind of like I struggle leaving tasks open and not finished. I have to like close the gap on that task for the day. And sometimes I set too many tasks for a day, but I still push myself to kind of finish that task for the day. I hate leaving things to sleep on, to the next day.
How old are you now?
I'm 22.
Yeah. So why is that a problem?
What, sleeping on the unfinished problem?
No, why is it a problem to work that long, that many hours?
I'm worried of burnout. I'm scared I'll burn myself out.
At 22?
Yeah.
You don't have a grey hair in your head.
Yeah.
You're not gonna burn out.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I don't like. There's two things there. You don't worry about it. It's a good trait to have. I mean, if I could choose, I would choose to be you and not someone that works 4 hours a week and kind of makes a bit of money. Sorry, guys. Just a bit sick.
Sorry.
So I mean, do it as long as you can, and then when other more important things come into your life, when you have a partner, it's naturally going to balance out. But what would you do in terms of resting? I mean, you're doing a podcast at 10 in the morning on a Wednesday. This is not stressful.
Yeah.
So I think you have enough balance.
Yeah. And then in terms of resting, we spoke about this as well. I think the only way I can genuinely switch off is when I'm around friends, when I'm playing sport. And funny enough, when I go for walks, like taking the dog for a walk, that's when I literally can't get access to a laptop. If I'm near my laptop, I'm gonna work. That's kind of my thing.
I think you're fine. I don't think you need balance now. Use every moment you have available when you're young to learn as much as you can and to make as much money as you can if you have that opportunity. And then do things like this, because this is obviously you learning and you're developing. This is a new skill, or you're probably skilled at it now, but when you started it was a new skill for you. You speak to people that you can learn from. You're grappling with ideas when you talk to each other. So this is good for you. This is not, don't see this as work. Again, once other things come into your life, the balance will come because you'll prioritize. But if work's the most important thing in your life, you're going to prioritize it. Yeah. And that's not a bad thing at all.
Yeah, you shouldn't feel guilty for where you want to spend your time. If you don't want to, like, you shouldn't watch a Netflix series because you feel like, okay, I need to switch off because people tell me I need to switch off.
Yeah.
If you want to spend your time doing your work and that's where you find value, then there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's giving
But what are you doing it for? Are you doing it for other people? Like,
nah, I'm just obsessed with my work.
No, I'm saying taking the breaks and like watching the Netflix.
I think it is.
You feel like a pressure to like, oh, I have to take a break.
Yeah, it is. It is that to an extent. It's not because I want to take a break. It's because people say you should rest more. Like you should take more breaks. That's kind of why I've been taking breaks recently. I didn't think about it that way actually. That I was taking breaks for other people instead of just doing it because I wanted to.
Yeah, no, that's all bullshit. Don't listen to anything other than your own mind. Okay, because you're gonna watch a Netflix series and be anxious while watching it. Then what's the point of
not even watching the series, to be honest.
I would have that trait. You said you're obsessed about your work. I would have that 100 times out of 100 if I could choose. People want the 4-hour work week or whatever. That's bullshit. Who wrote that book? Tim Ferriss.
Yeah,
that book.
Tim Ferriss. Yeah.
He doesn't work 4 hours a week. He works a lot more. But he does like he speaks on like the tedious work that makes the money. That's how he builds that stuff. But that doesn't switch off. Like he's obsessed. If he's not meeting people, recording podcasts, writing blogs, he's not chilling in the off hours. So people think that's like the dream, is to have like a balance. And I've watched some of your episodes and you guys speak about having a balance. But if you want to be great at something and successful, then balance is the worst thing. David Goggins is the way he is, not because he's living a balanced life. He's living an obsessed life. And when you said you're obsessed with your work, good. Yeah, the balance will come. Remember, we like stop working at 65, 70, and then you're still going to live for 20 years doing nothing.
Yeah.
So it will balance out eventually. You don't need daily balance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But what about those people? Because there's also a narrative going around on the internet now of these young money gurus who say like, why retire when you're 70 when you can retire when you're 30, or you can retire when you're 40? Like, why work a desk job when you can travel the world and work from a laptop? Like, that's the kind of narrative right now. I find it kind of toxic in a sense, because sometimes people what they want is a desk job. What they want is to chill in the 9 to 5 and switch off at 5. So how would you, especially with young impressionable people, how would you help them cut through the noise of these young money gurus and doing what they actually want to do? Because I feel like a lot of times people listen to them and like, well, that's what I should do, and then they do it, but it's not actually what they want to do. So how would you cut through the noise on the internet like that?
Yeah, it's just being true to yourself, and that's only possible if you actually know yourself well. I have many friends who do 9 to 5 and that refuse to leave it. Like, they want that. They probably need the security and the comfort in knowing their salary's coming in, and they might enjoy their job. And it's like, well, what's the problem? If you're an accountant and you're a 9 to 5er, great. If you're an accountant and you start an online accounting business and you can work 4 hours a week and make double the cash, great on you. But you probably get bored at some point. So the guys that make it at 30 as like are you in marketing and things? Or
Yeah, marketing.
They're normally in like marketing, content creation and stuff, right? So good on them, and lucky for them. Like every profession has some people that are going to rise to the top or strike lucky. Some of them probably made money off Bitcoin and then use that to find something, you know. They might have an online presence already. It's the same with podcasts. Not everyone's going to get 20 million views, but if you lucky and you hit the right target market and at the right time, then good on you. But rather focus on like doing things you enjoy and love doing. If that takes you to a 30-year-old sitting in Bali with a laptop, great. But I know people that have tried that and failed as well, and now they have no idea what to do because they don't have a backing in anything. And then some people didn't even try to do that and they landed the job and now they like living the dream. So don't chase like an idealistic lifestyle. Chase doing what you love, and if it takes you there, great. But at least then, if it doesn't, you're still loving your day to day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's what we talk about on the channel all the time. We say your goal can't be a financial threshold or a certain age where you want all these things in your life. It just that stuff comes. You just got to find the passion, find the goal, and work with that. That's all you can do. Whatever comes from that comes from that. That's our mindset. Just the reason we speak about balance a lot at this age. I agree with you. To be great, you need to be obsessed, dedicated to it, right? But what I like to bring up the balance because to be great, it comes at a sacrifice as well. You sacrifice a lot of things like family connections, friends, going out having fun sometimes. So I like to talk about the balance because I think everyone like has that mindset like you need to be great but they don't understand what it takes, what you need to sacrifice. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why I like to talk about the balance because you need to realize what you might be losing out on as well. And do you want it? Is it worth it?
Exactly. So balance is obviously better than anything else. You are healthier, happier, all of those things if balance. But if you're obsessed with reaching something, then balance is gonna hold you back.
For sure.
I mean, the guys that have made it, they're not motivated to be good at something. They're obsessed at being the best. You know, that's what guys like Djokovic are still doing so well.
Right.
Tiger Woods, after how many setbacks, he's still like he doesn't have motivation to play. He's obsessed with still being the best. That's the only thing that's going to get you there. But it does come at a cost. So most people like the idea of it, but don't understand the cost.
That's why I say with him, I always say like, if you're obsessed with your goals and you achieve where you want to be, right? Maybe you get the mansion and you got how much money you want to earn. But then how many friends have you made on the way?
Yeah.
How many people are still around you? Like, because to be that great, sometimes you need to isolate yourself. So that's why I ask, like, you need to weigh it up. Like, I get the house and the mansion, but then where are my friends? Where are my people around me? So yeah.
That's saying that it's lonely at the top.
Yeah, it is.
But then I guess your companion becomes your goal. Like your purpose becomes like something that you can sit with more than you would need to sit with a friend. So I guess that's how you kind of find that kind of fulfillment.
Yeah, and I mean, depends how you frame friendship in your mind because friends come and go. You know? I think I've made 3 new friends last month. And whether you're chasing the dreams, like let's go Tiger Woods again. Growing up, he had friends that he lost because he was obsessed, but now he's friends with the guys on tour. So it's not like there aren't people like-minded to you. So you'll find people to be friends, but how you frame friendship, if it's like this guy I've known since I've been 13, I need to keep in contact with him, then it's going to be tough. But if you accept that friends come and go and people come and go in your life, then again, friendship doesn't mean anything. Family is obviously different, but your family is never going to leave you. And if they love you unconditionally like they should, then they're going to support you in your goals. So it's all relative to how you perceive these narratives that people put out there. And the way I like to deal with it in my own life and to help other people is like forget anything that anyone says and just like, what do you want? And then chase that. But it's hard because people don't know what they want.
That's the big one. to maybe change it a bit, um, I'm kind of like the opposite to him. I'm very much a procrastinator, and get I get distracted easily, and I lose motivation very easily. And it's something I struggle with a lot. Like, I question myself, like, why can't, like, sometimes I question, am I doing the right thing? Because I'm like, why can't I be motivated to do my psychology work when I know I have a passion for it, I love it, and I just don't understand why I lose motivation so easily. And it's something I can't strike a balance with. So I was just wondering if maybe you have any advice in that kind of field.
Yeah, it's tough with like to give advice is hard because I don't actually know why. But also the psychology work you mentioned, you love psychology, right? So you love the idea of psychology. So do I. But if you have to do a silly assignment on ethics, no one loves that. So I would also procrastinate doing that, and I am a psychologist, you know. So it's, but if you go do your master's thesis one day on the topic you've chosen, then you never, it just like becomes part of your life, because reading the information is like listening to David Goggins' podcast. You love getting it, so you can't get enough of it. So so then that's also goes out the window. So if you're procrastinating because you've got some other stuff in your life that you're not dealing with, and you stressed out about it and things, and then by paying attention to one thing you kind of distract yourself from paying attention to the stressful stuff in your life, then I'd say, well, go pay attention to those things. Go sit with yourself, go see a psychologist and deal with it. But if it's because you're actually not, the stuff you're procrastinating on is quite boring, and it's like, just get through it until you get to a point where you can pick the stuff you engage with. I procrastinated my whole academic career until, and I was scraping through with like the minimum to qualify for honors. I was like on the border for masters. I think I got lucky to get in, and then I got cum laude for my masters. So, and I've never got a cum laude in my life. In school, I got 60s,
what is that?
like an A, an 80% or whatever.
Okay.
At school I was getting 60s. Throughout varsity I was getting 60s and 50s. But then the hardest degree I got good marks because I was doing only what I love. So I'm a heavy procrastinator, but if you find the thing that you truly like love, then you'll, and psychology is boring 90% of the time, so don't beat yourself up about it.
Yeah, I think it's doing the things, like the hard things, like like you say, the essays that can be quite boring and not that interesting. That's probably where I procrastinate the most. But I beat myself up like bad. Like I that's when I start questioning, like, am I cut out for this? And I doubt myself a lot. And so I was gonna ask you, how do you find the balance between loving yourself, like for you are your intrinsic values, but at the same time aiming for always being a bit harsh on yourself so you have self-improvement?
Yeah, it comes down to that earlier point we made, like with trust. If you love yourself, you've got to give yourself something to love. And if you inherently feel you're not where you should be, then you're not going to love yourself. We're very conditional with self-love. We can be unconditional with our family, but we're very conditional with self-love. So, and I don't see that changing for most people. And the narrative about love yourself no matter what, I think is bullshit. Like, you can't love something if you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see, you know? Or you look at your bank account and you feel like embarrassed that you're not making any money. Then it's hard to love yourself. So personally, I probably became comfortable with myself, which is a term I prefer to use rather than love myself. Only like at 28, 29, when I made too many mistakes to continue making mistakes, and I was like, it's time to get your shit together. But dark days before that, very dark days. And with clients, if they come and say I don't love myself, then it's very practical. It's like, well, go do something that you'll be proud of. You know, Jordan Peterson, they all speak about this. Like, make sure every day you're doing things that you can actually be proud of, because you can't say I'm proud of myself, but you're not doing anything that you are proud of. Right. You can't say I love myself, but you don't like who you are. So let's start with that. Let's start with getting comfortable with yourself, and then liking yourself, and then eventually you'll love yourself. You know.
Yes.
But there's another argument to that where it's like when people say love yourself, they mean be kind to yourself, and I like that one.
Right.
Rather just be kind to yourself. So if you have a shitty day and you stay in bed all day and you snack on stuff and you don't do your work, instead of hating yourself for that and being like you're so useless, find out why did you have a day like that. Like question. I like to go introspective then. So like what am I avoiding to stay in bed? And then if it's something and you're okay, that's fine. But tomorrow you start over, you know. So you're just a little bit more kind in your self-talk, and that's probably the way I would fix it in clients in therapy, is to say, well, let's not love ourselves. Let's just be a little bit more kind to yourself.
I brought this up because I literally had this day yesterday. Like obviously I have an essay to work on, and I'm sick. And I was in bed and I just was tired and I didn't feel like doing anything. But I beat myself up so badly for it. And I was like, you could have done it. Like I tell myself, but you could have done it. You could have sat there and done at least something.
Yeah.
But I did nothing. And I felt so terrible about it. But then I got another, I just went to spoke to someone and they just told me like, but you're sick. And I just, it's a perspective that it was so hard for me to be kind to myself, just to say like, but you're sick, man, like relax. But I don't know, it's extremely difficult to be kind to yourself for some reason. I don't really understand why.
Yeah. And again, not a bad thing, because you're holding yourself to a standard.
Right.
If that becomes your lifestyle and you don't care about it, then I would say there's a problem. So it's not bad to have negative self-talk, but also be kind to yourself and more understanding with yourself. And the same with athletes, you know, when they like play a bad shot and they swear at themselves, fair, because you're holding yourself to standard, but you can question the shot in a more kind way. And goes back to my first point again, it's all about what we're thinking. So how you think about yourself and how you're perceiving the moment is going to determine how you feel. So just alter that and get new perspectives, and then you suddenly feel a little bit better enough to get out of bed and make your bed and go to the gym. You know? But sometimes you got to be a little bit more strict with yourself, and then put in place some things like go on a run every day, go to the gym, and then motivation must kind of disappear. It's like you're not going to run when you're motivated. You're going to run every day because it's non-negotiable. There's no choice. Motivation is only a thing if you allow yourself to have a choice. But if you say like there's no choice, I'm going to be successful, or I'm going to run today, or I have to run every day, or in this month I want to pick up 2 kilograms of muscle, whatever your goal is, it's got to be non-negotiable. Like every day's plan has got to be no choice.
Gotcha.
I think that's a Cameron Haynes thing. Right? You guys listen to him as well?
I haven't heard of him though.
No.
He's your next guy then. David Goggins and then Cameron Haynes.
Okay.
That looks insane, and he just says like it's not about waking up with motivation. It's like there's no choice. I run 10 miles every morning. End of story. And he works a 9 to 5. So
what does he do?
He's a professional bow hunter.
What?
And then
Is it a 9 to 5?
He has a 9 to 5 job. He's a professional bow hunter. Actually, the best shot in the world, apparently. He's Joe Rogan's coach, I think, in bow hunting. Wow. And then like runs ultra marathons as well. He does what David Goggins does, and does bow hunting, and then works 9 to 5. So he makes you feel there's no excuses very quickly.
Right.
Yeah. But he says like just take the choice away. Then you don't. Then motivation is irrelevant. It's like, well, screw motivation. It's obsession. There's no choice. You know?
Yes.
So, but it's tough because we have ups and downs. So
yeah.
How do you take the choice away though? Because like when you have to wake up at 4 a.m., that snooze button looks like extra good. You know, like it looks good. How do you take what are some practices you can put in to take the choice away when you make hard decisions like that?
Yeah, the hardest one is the start, because like you it's cold at 4 a.m. On Tuesdays and Thursdays I have to wake up at 4 to get to work on time. but because I have to get to work, I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Right.
So you kind of go into that mentality with your training. It's like, I have to train today, otherwise I'll feel shit the whole day, or whatever narrative you develop. There can't be a choice. So it's easy again with when there's a commitment that's like reliant on other people, like a job. People do it, but when it's a self-commitment, like I just want to be fitter, then it's tough. So you've got to try and develop that mentality. And the hardest part is the beginning, because the other thing is habit. Like it's easy for guys that run every day, that have been running for every day for like, let's say 6 months. It's very easy for them because it's habit. So if you can get through the first 2 weeks of that, you've built the habit. It will take about 2 weeks to build the habit, and then it's easy.
Yeah.
So I would say suffer for 2 weeks until you've built that habit, and then also put your phone alarm on and put your phone in the other corner of the
That's what
room.
I've started doing.
Yeah.
Force you to get up. Right. Just to change the subject a bit. What do you think the impact? Especially in today's world with social media and stuff, there's so many quick dopamine hits, right, that you can get. So, what do you think the influence of social media is having on motivation and discipline?
Jeez. I don't actually know what influence it's having, because there's so many theories out there, like positive theories and negative theories, and I haven't dug into that specifically with social media and motivation enough. But if I have to theorize, I would say it's not going away. Like we're not suddenly going to hit a stage where motivation doesn't exist. It's the way, I mean, you guys live completely differently to I do, and we're close in age. Because of this boom of the last 10 years in social media and stuff. So when I'm teaching people your age, I can't believe, I feel old, and I'm not that old. I'm very close to you in age, but I feel old. So the generations before me are then obviously more distant from it.
Right.
And I think once that phases out, it will be the norm. And then the question, does social media influence motivation, won't even exist, because it will just be the way we live. So we're just in that change kind of space now. And the same thing happened when TVs became a thing, and the same thing happened when the internet became a thing. Until it becomes the new norm. No one asks now what influence does the internet have on children. The traditional internet, I mean, like when Google was a thing, not when. And when I was 15, that was the question going around, like TVs. When are kids watching too much TV? That was the thing with me as a child, and now with you guys, it's cell phones. So it's just another cycle of something. So it's hard for me to say if there's actually an influence or if it's just adapting to the new way of living, because that's not going away, right? So, but that being said, there's obviously kids that give us evidence that it's harming them. But there's also 18-year-old kids highly successful in sports with the same social media and stuff. So I'll still say it comes down to parenting styles. If you parent correctly, then that stuff won't have an effect. But if you're lazy in your parenting, then your kid's susceptible to it.
Right.
And that's the same with TVs. When I was 15, if my parents just let me watch TV all the time, it would be a problem. But if they parented me well, which luckily they did, then there were some rules in place. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, it's hard to once you're a teen or young adult to set those rules for yourself, because I think with social media, all these tools, they can be useful. They can be useful tools. But like, that's why we talk about balance. It's like, yeah, but you need to find that balance, because these things can be consuming, and then it can take you off your path. That's what I've found in my personal experience.
Sure,
yeah.
Look, it's easier to be distracted now. And we do like short form content more than ever.
Right.
That instant dopamine hit that you mentioned. But again, before television, it was radio, right? And then TV shows came into play.
People used to freak out about radio, but you're listening to too much radio. Like they freak about TVs.
Yeah.
What?
Like Elvis was banned on the radio. So, I mean, you know what I mean? Yeah. In some countries, not always.
For what?
For being too...
too good.
Use the Andrew Tate of now. It's like the same stuff happens through time. So when TV came into place, then it was like a half an hour TV show was short form content compared to a radio which you
Right.
listen to all day, and
Yeah.
the same arguments were made. So it just changes. The technology we're talking about just changes, but the argument doesn't change
Right.
until it becomes the norm. Now, my dad watches more TV than anyone I know.
Right.
And when I was young, he was like, "Yeah, it's bad for you, and stop watching so much TV," you know.
Yeah.
And eventually, your parents and my parents will be so savvy on their cell phones that you'd be like, "Okay, can you just talk to me now? You're on your phone all day," you know.
It's already at that stage
Exactly,
where
yeah.
parents are obsessed with their phones.
Yeah. Well, exactly. So it's just another cycle of the same stuff. That's why, again, it's not about social media or the cell phone. It's like, how is it being used? And if you're not controlling that, then it can be negative. But that's the same for drugs and alcohol as well.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just about the person rather than the problem.
How good is your self-control?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And if you're a child, your parenting styles. Parents have it tough. It's harder to parent now. It's easy to kick someone off a TV. It's hard to kick someone off their cell phone.
There's also a lot of opinions. There's a lot of opinions in your phone. So that might override what your parents think. Because, like, why should I listen to you, Dad, when Andrew Tate tells me I can have a Bugatti?
Yes.
Like, that's the kind of thing they're dealing with now as well. There's a lot of competition.
Of course, yeah. It's difficult. I feel for parents, and I see it because a lot of my clients are minors or under 18. And they sometimes look at you like, I don't know what to do with it. Like, I can't get through to them. They're always on their phone. They never want to train. Can you fix it? It's tough. I feel sorry for parents.
What is your advice for people like that normally? Where do you start?
Well, you made a mistake as a parent letting it get to this place in the first time. So acknowledge that. Don't look outside for the fix. I'm not fixing your child.
Yeah.
1 hour a week compared to 23 hours that you spend with them.
Yeah.
So the work is with you, not with your child. So be stricter as a parent. Have better boundaries in place. Like, don't be like, "Hey bro, do you want to go for a run?" to your son, and if he's on his phone saying no, then complain to me that your son's not motivated. Tell him, put your phone down, we're going for a run. You know, you're allowed to do that with a 14-year-old child. I don't know, it's changed, but parents want to be too friendly with their kids sometimes. And unfortunately, kids need rules. And I'm not saying this as an opinion. Like, all the evidence, all the literature is there. The child functions better and becomes a better human being in society if they grow up with rules. They can decide later when they develop a frontal lobe which rules they want to follow and not. But as a baseline, you should have structure in a child's life. The evidence is very clear on that. So it's what I like about Jordan Peterson saying, don't allow your child to do anything that will make you dislike them. You know, it's like, take control of that as the parent. That's my advice to them. So.
And it's tough because parents then, like parents who are like that, who are quite strict, they get like a lot of bad stigma because, like, in this new modern world, you got to give your kids freedom, man. You got to let them be who they want to be, and it's hard. It's hard to implement those boundaries.
Yeah. Look, you obviously can be successful coming out of a dysfunctional home.
Sure,
If obsession about something is kind of your addiction, like David Goggins came out of a dysfunctional home, didn't he? So you can obviously be, but those are the extremes. Like, in the general picture, and I say rules, but it's more about structure. Having a structure in place for children, it's very important in general.
I wanted to go into the psilocybin because you guys are running an assignment on it, aren't you?
Oh yeah, you told us about. Are you allowed to?
Are they doing an assignment on psilocybin?
No. You were telling us. You spoke in one of our lectures. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it.
Yeah, of course.
It was like a research on psychedelic use for people suffering with psychosis. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So there's MDMA in the treatment of PTSD. And trauma, stress related disorders, and then psilocybin specifically for more the mood disorders, so depression and stuff like that. And it's becoming popular. There's a couple of things happening in the country now in psilocybin in terms of educating people on how to use it in practice, ethically and stuff, because when it becomes popular like this, then everyone's going to try it. So it's just like trying to maintain some level of education and ethical standards on it, which is good, obviously, but it's very successful. I can speak more on the MDMA because that was my specific research was on MDMA, and it's a lot more successful in treating PTSD than any other treatment method that we've used in the past. Probably double as successful. Also because it's short term. So treating PTSD is quite a long term therapeutic process. If you go traditional talk therapies and stuff, and the dropout rates is quite high. Probably like 40 to 50% of people drop out of treatment before it works. Again, because you're doing 1 hour a week, but you're suffering with your symptoms 23 hours of the week, or of the day. Sorry. So psilocybin or MDMA, it's like 2 hard 8-hour sessions of intervention, and with maybe a follow-up session, and then maybe 3 months down the line another follow-up session. So you it's like an attack on the problem, and then it's better. That's what it seems to be. So no one has to commit to 6 months of therapy or 12 months of therapy. They commit to a week of treatment, and because the treatment is successful instantly, it's not like in 6 months you feel better. It's like tomorrow you're going to suddenly not have symptoms anymore. It's incredible. I'm being quite, it's not that simple.
Clear cut.
It's not that clear cut, but generally that's the case. But what they've seen with the follow-ups is that 3 months, 6 months down the line, the reduction in symptoms increases, so it gets better. It's not like it's a short-term fix, but then it comes back. It actually does the opposite. So the results at 6 month testing is better than the day after.
That's so incredible, because one of the thing we always discuss with people who have had traumatic passes is like it's so expensive to get the help you need, because it's consistent. You need to have it pretty much like your whole life. Some people need it. So to have this kind of thing makes therapy, and people need help, it makes it so much more cost effective for them, which I think is really great. But the thing is, there's always that stigma around drugs. So how are you actively going to fight that stigma that people have with these drugs? Are you just going to show full-blown research, like here is the results, we're showing that it's working? Is that kind of your approach?
I'm the wrong person to ask about that, because I honestly can say I don't care. If it's helping people, and it's done in a controlled setting, then whatever you have to say, I mean I have psilocybin mushrooms tattooed on my arm.
Wow.
So I'm definitely fighting the stigma openly, but it's not about what the media think about the drugs. It's about what is the goal of this. It's to get less people to commit suicide, essentially, because that's the number one cause of death in people suffering from depression or PTSD. It's suicide. So if we can stop that, even by 1% more than we currently are, it's a positive.
And how do the results compare to current medicine that tries to treat these disorders in terms of side effects? That kind of thing?
I must tread carefully because there's so many of these medicines, so I don't want to group them. But specifically to MDMA, it's I believe it's like, I think the results were, I would have brought the stuff if I knew you were going to ask about this, but it's probably about 37% success rate with current medicine, compared to like a 67 to 82% success rate with MDMA, depending on the study. So the studies range from about 67% success to 82%, and success measured by very technical. So no longer meeting the PTSD, the scores on the PTSD scale. So you can no longer be clinically diagnosed with it. So some people still have symptoms, but not enough to be diagnosed with PTSD. So that's 67 to 82%, and it increases to 90% over 6 months in some studies, where with conventional medicine it ranged between 30 and 40% successful. So it's double essentially at the moment, And I'm less clear on the evidence of psilocybin, but I mean, I can tell you it definitely works. I just can't say how much compared to
And how long do you think it would take before? Well, how much research do you still need to collect before this can become really like mainstream?
It's fairly mainstream in America already. I mean, you can go and become a psilocybin or psychedelic assisted therapist now. There's a course you can do on it. Their trials, the MDMA trials, the phase 3 trials, which is the final phase before the FDA approve, are the ones that are showing these successful results. And the main thing with the FDA approval is the safety, and the safety records are even better than traditional medicine. So it's both successful and safer.
Interesting.
Obviously, it's not safe to take MDMA long term at an unregulated dose.
Yes.
But if it's
that's what people do when they go to parties. Pretty much.
Yeah. And I mean, that's up to them. I'm not against that at all. But for treating something, then there's specific doses. There's like 2 sessions and done. So it's not like you're chronically taking medication. So that's why it's safer as well. Also, the way, if you're doing it through medical kind of through studies and stuff, then you control the purity of the actual substance.
Yeah.
Where if you're buying it on the streets, you're not actually sure.
Right.
So there's all those benefits to it. So I'm for controlled use, but I'm also not. I don't think we should have drugs banned generally, but that's a personal opinion and not part of this conversation. But I'm for the controlled use of these things.
Yes.
There was a question that I'm not answering. What was the question you asked when
you asked the question?
It's just, I felt there was a sentence I had to respond to.
I think you covered it, but
oh no, sorry. I asked how long will it take
until
it becomes mainstream.
So how long it will take is within the next year in the States. We might already have it approved as a treatment if we don't already have it there. But South Africa only recently. What is our board called? SARPA, so the Health Regulatory Medicine Board. I think they've just approved the first study using MDMA, and I think it's going to be done here at UCT, but I might be wrong. I'll just double check for you, but I think UCT are going to run their first, and that's where you administer the drug yourself. The study I did was secondary research, because we obviously weren't allowed to administer the drug yet. So we kind of plugged into the studies in the States and used their results. So, but the first live medical study has been approved now for MDMA. So we still got a while to go, but many more countries are doing it. Brazil's big on it. In Europe, there's a couple of countries, and they've got different kind of laws around the drug in general. So sometimes it will be quicker in those countries, where MDMA is a very, very illegal substance in the States. So it's taking longer to get approval. So I don't think much longer. I think within 5 to 10 years, this will be mainstream. But the problem is you are fighting against pharmaceutical companies now.
Yeah.
So
they'll probably buy them out though.
Buy them out or find a way to do like low dose chronic medication. Like there's anything they can come up with.
Right.
So I don't know what will happen in that space. But there's a very big push. The push for this is much bigger than the push to legalize weed. There's a much bigger, almost corporate drive behind it as well. So that makes it easier. But it's definitely a quicker process than the weed process was.
Yeah. And what's the risk for people who have psychosis in their family history?
Yeah, that's tough. With MDMA, not really. Although it was an excluder in the studies, but it doesn't, the way the drug mechanics work in the brain doesn't seem to be a massive risk. But with psilocybin, it's tough. We know that there are people that have psychosis or are predisposed to it, that have taken psilocybin and been fine, but it's a little bit like playing Russian roulette with your own mind. So you want to kind of be careful on that, because we don't actually know, because it's very hard to determine. There's not really a discovered gene for
psychosis,
psychosis yet. So you're going on self-reported family history, so it's a risk to take.
That's the only thing I was thinking that could be a bit of a stumbling block there.
Yeah, but as soon as we have better ways of identifying that, the predisposal, then will be fine.
So people who are predisposed to psychosis, they would have to do traditional methods of treatment for PTSD, that kind of thing. They can't really go into that.
Well,
Unless they want to take the risk.
I think PTSD they find. I think, look, if you're predisposed to psychosis and you suffer from PTSD, the traumatic experience will probably trigger the psychosis. So already. So you know what I mean. So that's another story. But so MDMA works on the amygdala in the brain, and it essentially suppresses the amygdala, which is responsible for a lot of things, but emotions and specifically fear-based emotions. So your anxiety and stuff. So that's why when people take it, they're so confident in public, is because their social anxiety has been suppressed, and their self-esteem issues are gone for that period of time. And that's like a physiological suppression of it. So there are obviously other hormones and neurotransmitters involved there, but essentially it suppresses the amygdala, which makes it easier for the person, the client, to access the traumatic memories.
Right.
And therefore do trauma processing. Then you do traditional trauma processing therapy in that space. So it's not like the drug cures the PTSD, it just opens the brain up to be able to do therapy.
So that the time is used more effectively, basically.
Yes, yeah, and it's like a 6 to 8 hour session, but you can talk freely about all your traumatic feelings and experiences without getting the reaction, which is why people drop out of therapy in the first place. Is revisiting it is too painful still. So the psilocybin works completely differently, and that's why. So psychosis and the suppression of the amygdala there's no correlation there. So I think MDMA would be fine for it, but don't take my opinion on this as an expert opinion. But then psilocybin, it's different mechanism, so we're not sure yet.
All right.
Yeah.
And then I don't know how much time we have left.
I don't think we have much. I don't want to risk it as well. Also with this buzz.
All right.
I can still hear it.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, we've been going for about an hour now, so. But yeah, no, Nick.
It always flies. Every guest we had, it's like that. I can't believe that was an hour.
Yeah, it went quite quick.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get you on again. Actually, I would love to get you on just to discuss some more stuff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because I had a lot more questions. But Nick, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate your insight and your knowledge. And I definitely learned a lot from this conversation.
I did too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So thank you for coming.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening, guys. We will see you next week.
Episode 7 done.
Episode 7. We'll see you next week, guys. Peace.